And welcome back to Barry's Poetic Session, the relationship show. And tonight's topic is, should you be friends before you date? Let's get into it. First, we have on my left, the creative Roy. We have my right-hand man, Brother Black. My better half, Takalani. And I'm your host, Barry, a.k.a. The Dark Knight. And who would want to start out first on this?
Well, seeing as I am the only woman here today, maybe I should. So how well should you should you be friends? I think it kind of depends on what friendship means to you. I think it kind of depends on what friendship means to you. So, for example, are we talking acquaintances? Are we talking besties or somewhere in between as someone you would date? And as far as how well you need to know someone before you start dating them, I think it's kind of on that same spectrum. Do they have to be an acquaintance or do they have to be like somewhere further down that friendship spectrum?
So if I'm your friend, would you date me?
Probably not.
Today.
But the reason why I say that is because I have been in relationships, situationships with people who I consider to be friends. And in the end, despite the romantic involvement or whatever, what I really missed more was the friendship.
They were no good in bed. Okay. So, no, I'm just messing with you.
So I think that for me specifically, it would depend on where we are in that friendship spectrum. So if it's an acquaintance, I could probably do that. And my reasoning for that is that, if you're in the acquaintance stage, then you may have room for development into something romantic, right? If you are like, let's go to the far end of the spectrum, like if you're besties, like my bestie right here.
Just as an example, but not like the rest of the stuff that not like.
But the reason why I wouldn't date somebody that I would consider to be a really good friend or a bestie is because if our relationship has developed to that point without romantic involvement, why bring it in now? But that's just my personal feeling on that.
All right. So, Brother Black, what would you say to that?
Well, I would say probably there never was any romantic feeling for that, which helped probably ease it to become a bestie. I've heard lots of times men and women say, my spouse is my best friend, but then y'all may be best friends, but they have a bestie.
She's not my best friend. I don't put rings on my best friend, so let's move on.
But I didn't say you. I said I've heard.
Right.
But I do think that for me, you have to qualify how you lead. When you see somebody, for me, it turns romantic. I saw them as attractive from the get-go. But I have enough sense to know that it's not going to lead to anything intimate or romantic. So I can see a woman and I'm not physically attracted to her or whatever. I'm still going to be friends with her if we have that kind of conversation. But I'm going to be friends with a woman that I also might be attracted to, because I think that by stage, I've got to be comfortable and that person's got to be comfortable with me as who I am. Thus the friendship. And as you move along, dating is part of that friendship, that you get to know each other.
May I ask? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
May I ask a question, Ovi? Would it be harder to be friends with a woman that you found attractive?
It'd be harder to be friends with her?
Yeah, just friends and nothing else.
No, I mean, because you'll know, they'll make it known to you, even without trying to make it known to you. For example, let's say you say, you know what, I'm going to try and get a little bit closer. I'm going to take you out on a date. or not use facility, but, take her on the date. And after the end of the date, you want to get out the car, open the door for her, walk her to her door. Just, being a gentleman, being romantic. But when you pull up to the house or apartment or whatever, and they got the person say, had a great time, thank you. Well, I'm a friend. Or maybe when you call, you say, well, did you enjoy the date? They say, well, I had a good time, this, that, or the other. But they might not say, I had a good time, I'd like to do it again. And then you say, well, we can do it, plan something else, whatever. It moves on. So you'll know. Or you might let them know that this is not, what I like.
I know for me, I have opened the car door for all my women friends or romantic. It didn't really matter. If it's a woman, then I open the door for her. And that's, so there might have been some confusion on my part, I guess, from them, from my upbringing, that, my parents are both from the South, so we have a different sensibility. So some people are going to pick up on, hey, he's just being very, as opposed to, oh, he's trying to get with me. So I don't know. Maybe there's some misinterpretation there, but I'm just being me. Leave me alone. What about you, the creative bro?
Well, earlier before this session, I talked about this topic. The lovely Takalani wrote out this wonderful chart. And on one end was acquaintance, and on the other end was bestie. My entry point to a romantic relationship is anywhere on that fucking spectrum. Now,
So you get in where you fit in, basically.
So to be real clear about that, you've got the issue of intimacy. That really is the bottom line part of this. Like someone you just met at a Burger King is not going to necessarily, you aren't going to know much about them. You're going to barely know their name, going to show up at the date, and then you're going to try to figure it out. Someone who you've known for 10 years, you already know all those things. You just go out and you hang out, and then maybe sparks happen. But the point is that first you have to have a degree of intentionality. You've got to, if you start off meeting somebody in a library or whatever, and you start talking to them, and you're like, hey, we should hang out sometime. That intentionality is kind of broad. We could be going out on a date. We could just be hanging out to talk about the book that you just picked up. It could be many different things. But that's why the entry point could be wide, because that same intentionality could happen at a later time where you're just like, we're going to do this. But you have to be as explicit about the intent of the event. You can't just be like, let's go watch, like if me and you went to go see Black Panther, and then at Black Panther, I'm like,
Right.
You'd be like, where is this coming from? What is this about? Like all the rest of the stuff. It would totally be like, what's going on with Shaq? And so like,
You're lucky you're on my left side. But anyway, we just
Stop it.
but that's what I mean, is that you can't disguise the intentionality, and especially if you've been friends with them for a considerable time, you should feel really, really comfortable being able to tell them, like, you know what? All this time I thought there was something more, there could have been something more. Let's try that out. And part of the problem that was mentioned earlier was that when you get involved in that, you are rolling the dice. You're risking something. Mm-hmm. Because there is room for misinterpretation and other things that can happen. Now, I have dated near both ends of those spectrums. Someone who I just met, someone who I've been involved with for a while. And some of the people that I met with the intent of only dating have become really good friends of mine. And those people who were really good friends of mine who I asked out, those relationships fell apart. So there's a risk, because it starts turning into this other kind of, there's a risk involved, like one of them is that thought that I think you were kind of alluding to, and is related to, I should say, the idea that were you my friend just for this reason this whole time?
So it feels like it could potentially be either a betrayal of trust, or you just waiting them out. Like, hey, wait until you're vulnerable and then pounce on.
That kind of stuff. Exactly. And so that sense of betrayal, that sense of pouncing, that you've got that issue. And then you also have the other issue of if it did work out and then things fell apart, how do you back up and then cheer them on? A lot of divorced couples go through that. There are plenty of people who they get divorced and they actually remain friends, and that's about as intimate as you would imagine a person could get with each other.
And I think because somebody knows somebody so well, they can either be friendly or what have you after that time period. Did you have any Takalani, anything?
I think that for me, and this could be a specific flaw or sensitivity in me where I fall harder if there's a friendship involved. So if I am friends with this person already, and
I don't want to hear this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
but if I'm friends with this person already, and then we get into a romantic thing, like I get all googly eyed like right away because it's like, oh, well, we were friends and this turned into something romantic and, oh, butterflies and rainbows. And that ain't what it is. It's just your friend that wanted to hook up. Like, it's not as romantic as I would think it is.
Or, you have to bring in the original Mac, 2 weeks. We ain't friends. We ask some specific questions and then.
Well, see, that would be on the acquaintance end of the spectrum that you.
Now, is that even an acquaintance if you only know them 2 weeks? That's not even an acquaintance. That's just
I would say
somebody you met.
so, simply because you know a little something about them, I'm assuming. I'm not.
No. So, like, my dad met his wife after 2 weeks asking questions. Now, he knew the mama, and that's how he got
So
into
he knew
meeting the daughter.
something about her. It
But she
wasn't
didn't
like-
know. She didn't know my dad.
But it wasn't
She
like,
got blindsided. My mama said that you somebody I need to know. And then he asking all these questions like, in 2 weeks, okay, we're going to get married. What about my boyfriend?
I'm not trying to hear that, see.
The original Mac, right?
right.
But I think that there is a point that if I'm friends with somebody, but I'm all of a sudden, or maybe from the get-go, whatever point it was, that I'm feeling I want to be intimate or romantic, you just got to make it known, and you got to be upfront about it. Now, we might still just wind up being nothing more than friends, but at least you let it be known.
So I think the situation that I'm kind of referring to is like, you've been friends, you've seen them date other people, they seen you date other people, everything been good. Then one day, y'all cool, y'all chilling, I'm single, you single. It's been a while for both of us.
We ain't getting no younger.
Our sexual orientations match. What up? And for me, I think that what I would like to consider is, can I lose this person and be okay? That's it. So if this happened with an acquaintance and me and the acquaintance ain't talking no more, okay. I mean, I really get into my relationships with people. So yeah, it would hurt a little. But if it was a bestie and you go there and you lose your bestie, I mean, like if I were to lose you as my bestie, that's the most important relationship for us to have, right? And so if it's a gamble of, like you said, we rolling the dice on this. So in the end, this could either turn out to be the love of your life, and you get married and you're having kids and the picket fence and all that, or you've lost your best friend.
So what I want to say to that though is the idea that something that you alluded to as well is that if you start off the relationship with that platonic intention, you can't I have never run into one where you started off with something with a 100% platonic intention and eventually something magical happened later.
It Is
Nope,
horny?
got to take that one back.
Is
That
horny
happened.
magical
Actually,
though?
that did happen to me. So like,
Horny
I gotta
ain't
take that
magical.
back.
Horny is just.
But it's not. But it's not horny. Actually, I have to go. I have to go back to this thing. Like I knew some people from school that I was just cool with, and I was friends with, and all the rest of this stuff. And just over time, we decided we would do something more. It wasn't. It's not that our initial attraction wasn't platonic. Is that it did change into something else, but it wasn't necessarily opportunistic. It wasn't because like, oh, they're horny and I'm horny. It wasn't even that. Just that we actually were talking to each other. We thought that there were some things that aligned, gave it a try, it didn't work out. That's so I'd have to take that back. So I have dated people who I went in with the thought of it being platonic. But
Did you go back to free and free?
no, one of them. Yeah, actually I did with them. So that actually did work out. So
Did you feel like in the relationships where the people were maybe closer to you in friendship, like along this spectrum, closer towards bestie, like maybe in the middle from friendship to bestie? So in those situations, did you feel a grievous loss of the friendship? And did you feel like maybe we should have never even went there and I'd still have my friend?
no,
Okay. Well, there it is.
So I think we have a different mentality.
I mean,
Is this a man-woman thing?
well, to be more specific about it, is that I knew what we were doing, what we were going to risk, and when I had that feeling for them, the whole thing had changed, and I was willing to be like, you know what, we'll give it a try. We'll have an at bat, see what happens. Didn't work out. The other way around has had me more upset, where they were acquaintances that we dated and we became good friends, and then they left, because that to me was hurt more, because I knew the people who I was dating before. Like, let me try it. You got me flustered. I'm not even sure how to talk about that part. So let's say I start dating. Let's say I'm friends with somebody for a bunch of years and knew them in school or whatever. And then one day we decide to give it a try. It doesn't work out. I knew them before. It doesn't work out. I have a better chance to recover, but I also know that the relationship, that's the finale of it. Cool. Whereas on the other side, I meet someone, we go out, we become their friends, and share a lot of intimate moments, share a lot of that other interdependency and all that stuff. That falls apart. It feels like a bigger chunk was lost.
Okay. So it's on the opposite end for you.
Yeah. It's so Mildred, don't leave.
So let me, that I'm glad you brought up Mildred, because I was going to ask you, what part of the spectrum do you think you and Mildred felt on before you actually started to actually feel like, okay, this is going to be a relationship, a serious relationship? Like, where do you think you and Mildred fell on that spectrum?
I don't know. She's special. I honestly have no idea where to put her on that one. Like, it was just like, I mean,
Or was it instant love and not just like there was no friendship phase?
so one of the important parts is that we met on a dating site. One of the contexts that we are really sharing is that the idea that this is just someone that you met like at work or at school. Like I mentioned, like that's a good example. Like I was talking about how like these people that I was going to school with, that I was friends with, that I dated, because the environment created the friendship. But if you just go on a dating site, you know the intent. There's not that debate. There's not this thing where you got to go through a friendship process. So we knew where we were going and how we were heading there. So we got intimate real quick.
Yeah.
Just like, so kind of toss that graph out of the window on that one.
Well, I think for Barry and I think I would have considered us acquaintances. I don't think that we had some deep moments together, but I don't feel like we were towards the end of this friendship spectrum.
We weren't friends. We were acquaintances who experienced a traumatic event when my mom was in the hospital. You took me to the hospital, and it brought back the traumatic event when your father was in the hospital. So that's where that was. It was just two people going through a traumatic event at the same time. And it was not, so it's like a plane crash kind of thing. It wasn't, we're friends or building a friendship or anything like that. It's just people who were in the circle who happen to be in the same space, so to speak.
It was like
plane crash.
Yeah, so you don't know the passengers, but you experience the same trauma because you're in the same
Instead of
space.
two ships passing in the night.
There's got to be a better phrase than that because that sounds like a disaster. But I understand.
But it was a disastrous situation that you just happened to be together at, but it wasn't because, we decided to sit next to each other at the hospital or in the plane. We just happened to be in a place where there was a tragic
and there was no
You ain't gonna have much time for the romance.
Right. So we didn't even think. So once she left the hospital and I went back home, there was no interaction to follow up on whatever it was. It's simply like a passenger where the plane, we made it safely on the ground and we went our separate ways. The same thing of once we left the hospital, we went our separate ways. So there was no interaction other than we just happened to be in the community of poetry and we will see each other from time to time and say hi or whatever, but it was not a deep, there wasn't a deep, let me get to know you or vice versa. It was just simply, hey, that's the dude that was on the stage back in the day, or that's the woman that was on the stage talking about this or what have you. She was at the air now.
But now here's what I find interesting.
You.
Somehow you got to remember each other.
So this is,
I didn't remember him. He remembered me.
Lie like a dog on a throw rug.
No. It's not, no. This
This is what I'm saying.
yeah.
There's something about each other that you remembered that maybe you connected with.
No. This is, it wasn't that. I'm going to tell you how it happened. So,
Miles of river, right?
no, what happened was I broke up with my ex, and my ex told me that it was her birthday and told me to call her and wish her happy birthday. And I wished her happy birthday on her voicemail and kept it going. My ex didn't even call her to wish her happy birthday, so it was a setup. We were set up.
It was the Adjustment Bureau.
Right. So then she
Maybe
called
your
me,
ex kind of recognized there might have been something between the two of you.
but she was mad when we got together, so I don't know. She's in denial herself. But then she called me up and from there said, thank you for wishing me happy birthday, and then we started talking. And that's when we started talking for the first time, listening to one another as opposed to, hey, what's up, poetry person? What's up, poetry person? Right. And so that was when the connection began.
You found that you had something in common.
Right. But prior to that, we were just two people who happened to...
Well, we had the grief of our parents,
Something in common.
but that wasn't what brought us. We didn't become romantic at that
I
time.
didn't say you became romantic.
Right. But that
I'm
was
saying
something...
that in the back of your brain storage.
Right.
So somebody has
So she was thanking me for happy birthday. I was thanking her for being there when my mom was in the hospital. And so the thank yous came, and then that...
There's a lot of storage of things all the way back to the first time they actually.
I think I see what you mean.
But there was an accumulation, but it wasn't intentional, as you were saying.
I didn't say that.
No. But I'm saying, but the creative Roy was talking about intentionality. There was no intention of friendship or romantic. It was just two people being, and then we got together to know each other, and then there was intention after that. Well, after I said, "Hey, thanks, cousin," and then got silence, like, "Oh, my bad."
Well, I think too. I think
Let me
too
write that
that
down. Thanks, cousin.
I think too that you have to have an opportunity for something like that to flourish, whereas we didn't before because we were always in passing. When we got to have that phone call, we got to sit still and actually explore each other. And that's something that we really never had the opportunity to do. Later on, people would tell me that they thought we had chemistry. I was not aware of that, and neither was he. But people were saying like, oh yeah, y'all had chemistry. Like, how did y'all know this? So when you say that there was something there, it probably was that we weren't aware of. And there was like some type of latency there, and it was just like the environment had to be right.
Yeah,
for
so
that
there was
to
a,
grow.
right, so it was basically, what is it? The, the flower bed was, so we were basically, it
The
blossomed.
seed was planted, but
Yeah.
the conditions weren't there for it to grow until
There was fertilizer.
we talked on the
Yeah.
phone.
You have to use the word fertilize.
I did.
There was fertilization because we do have children, so
I'm beginning to sense this conversation going all the way.
Get into a place.
Yeah, so this is, but should you be friends before you date? So the consensus is, what do you think?
I say the consensus is there has to be some friendship.
And you?
depends on the level of friendship.
And the creative rod? No. I would say no. And the reason why is there's a level of trust.
Can I change mine to no?
There's a level of trust that in relationships, there's a facade. In friendships, there's a no facade. When you're first trying to date somebody, you're putting your best foot forward. You're doing all this other stuff.
The representative.
Yeah, and when you have a friendship, you're just come as I am to the community, and it's a different process. And unless they say that the best relationships are the ones you don't look for, and that I believe is true because, I wasn't looking for a Tiffany. I was looking to do a 30-day pizza challenge, and instead I picked up a wife instead of my pizza challenge. So I didn't even get to do my pizza challenge because it was interfering with.
So you sacrificed for her.
It was pizza, so it was a big sacrifice. It was the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate thing. I found a wife instead of messing around with the pizza.
Now, I do want to add on to one thing. Going back to the very basic question, do you need to be friends before you date someone? No. But the intent should be that you become friends if you want something to meet.
Do you need to be or should you be?
So if I was actually telling somebody, I've had more success with people who I became acquaintances and friends with to begin with before that. But that has been later in my life when I've come to know more about myself and what I want. When I was young, I could not make the distinction well between like what friendship is, what lust is, what I want out of a relationship. And that confused not only me, but the people that I was talking to. So I was not a good experience for anybody at that time. Anybody. But later in life, since my 30s and 40s, I've been much better at just being like, hey, I like who you are for who you are. I'm interested in you as more than that. But also, if you don't want to be that, I can still like you for who you are.
I can like you who you are, but I'm not dating your friend. I'm cool.
Right. And that's another thing that you have to be real with yourself, too, because if you're like, the only thing I want to do is date you,
Right.
you need to know that yourself. And when the dating doesn't work out or they say they just want to be friends, then you're done. Simple as that. And take the L. Oh.
So I guess the biggest thing is more than should you be friends is you need to know yourself, I think.
Won't dare.
Because really, you can't. It's like I guess when you're trying to figure out this thing called life, you have to know yourself and what you want out of it.
I do think that has been key when it came to me understanding what I needed out of a relationship, because one of the things that I kept doing was going to friends and finding my romantic entanglements. Shout out to Jada. And finding my entanglements in that way. And I do think that was probably because there was some degree of safety there. I found it and this is going to sound crazy because I'm an extrovert, but I had going out there and just getting to know somebody with dating as the intention felt kind of scary to me. I felt more comfortable with people that I actually knew. I knew their dating style because I've seen them date other people. I know who they are as a romantic person and know who they are as a friend. It gave me a sense of comfort. But what I found was I was basically looking for them as cover and not as true romantic relationships.
So it sounds like many of them, like, I don't have a boyfriend, so you're going to have to do until I get my real boyfriend. That's what it sounded like.
Oh, but we can talk about that. Friendship intentions that are, because I done this, and I'm going to just be open with it. There are male friends that I have had where it was like, they was my backup. I have to stay in touch with you. I'm involved right now, but I'm going to be your friend because later on, if things dry up, I can go to you. Right. Well, and what I didn't understand about myself is I am not good F buddy material. I like to be in relationships, real ass relationships. We go out together. I'm allowed to be seen. People allowed to know my name. I'm not had a bitch. Like I can't do that.
Well, we said that when you're sitting down and people are waiting or coming to see you, you're still up. You don't have to say a word. You are intentional about who you are. And so it's easy to pick up who you are and people following you. Like when you went to the conference in Pennsylvania, people are like, we need to get to know you. You didn't say one word yet, but people knew that you were somebody to get to know.
And that has happened in situations that the guy may see it as an opportunity to become romantic, if they knew I was single or whatever. And sometimes I feel like what you're talking about, that charisma that people say that I have, I think sometimes they may have mixed that up as something romantic when it possibly could have been that I was just somebody they wanted to know, not necessarily somebody they wanted to get entangled, shout out to Jada again, with.
I'm one little thing that I want to throw out there have been plenty of people who have confused some of my actions as being overly flirtatious when it's not intended with that one. And it gets
You are flirty.
See,
You've been busted.
but anyway, I do want to go back to the other idea about like my dating style has always been a serial monogamy. I have never had a backup. I've never desired a backup.
And you don't want that, Nick.
Right. I never wanted it in the first place. The idea
because you have no fear. You're on the no fear spectrum, whereas she's on the very fearful spectrum. It reminds me of my son who always trying to do stuff and has no fear. Like, I'm just going to go get it done. There's nothing that's going to stop me.
I'm going to need you to illustrate that a little bit more in dating because I don't quite agree that I had the no fear. What do you mean by that?
So when I say no fear, no net is I want to experience. So for me, I didn't need to go, hey, I can go back to so-and-so or anything like that. I'm committed to figuring out how this relationship is going to go with Tiffany. Is it going to go wherever? I am just going to let this ride and figure it out. I'm not going to have a safety net. I'm not going to have the fear of, oh, this may not work out. I need a backup. I'm going to just jump from the airplane. Maybe I have a parachute, maybe I don't. Maybe somebody will save me, maybe they're not.
Baby,
Yeah.
you are the first guy that I dated where I did not have a backup.
Yeah. Because there it is.
Well,
then. What about you and your experiences with this whole?
You got backups.
No.
Well, before we do that, let's take a break and we'll be back and find out, did he have backups? And how well do you need to know someone to date them. We'll be back right after this on Barry's Poetic Session, the relationship show.
Hi, I'm the Creative Roy, and you're watching Barry's Poetic Session.
And welcome back to Barry's Poetic Session, the relationship show. And once again, Brother Black is back with, does he have a backup or not? What's up?
Wow. Sounded like a Batman series. I found out that I was in fact a backup guy. I felt that. But no, I've not had backups. Not that I knew of. You would know you had a backup. But part of my problem is for women, it's easy for me to make friends with them because I listen to them.
Imagine that. Listening to women allows you to be friends with women.
But then it also allows you to move from the friendship stage to the intimacy stage. Believe it or not, guys, women do see how attractive you are. But I'm going to quote Chris Rock. The moment you say something stupid, I've got to pull the panties back up. I was going to give it to you, but you said something stupid. And so because I was able to make friends with women, I could just sit down and talk to them just about anything. Some women were hesitant to express whether they wanted to be intimate with me or not because they thought somebody else was my girlfriend. Case in point, your son's teacher when he was, I think it was at kindergarten or preschool.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So everybody was like, oh, look, she got all excited. She was having a boarding day. She got all excited. Well, she got excited because we hadn't seen each other in a very long time. She was one of the friends. We would be in class. Well, not in class, but
I'm not going to say she a blocker, but she was cheerleading for you. That's what
If I haven't seen a friend in a long time, there's a certain reaction that I would have. Hey, how you doing?
I'm not jumping this high off the ground.
Nobody jumped that high.
She jumped this high, sir.
Nobody jumped that high. But the point that I'm making, as you can see how easy they misinterpreted the behavior.
I didn't misinterpret
that must have been his girlfriend or something must have went on.
If something got her juices flowing,
If you go
when she
from-
was upset right before that.
So if you go from not seeing each other, while we would, come from class, sit together and talk about whatever's going on in the class. All right, I would take her home. And then it was like, hey, thanks for giving me a ride. She's back, all right. That's not the intimacy that you guys think you're saying. It's the friendship. We could talk about whatever. I remember one time I was out at an event, and I meant to go to the event with another girl, but I had been confused about a date that we had before. So while I'm not going with her, we were at the gala. She was there. I happened to see her as we were walking by after the gala. We sat down and talked throughout the whole thing. And then he realized that we hadn't danced. We just sat there and talked. Took her home. That was it. So it was that kind of thing. She just went there because same situation. She wanted to go with somebody else. They weren't there. But hey, we got these tickets. Everybody's going, hey, what's your ticket money?
Right. That costs too much money. I get that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, once again, somebody jumping is a little bit more than the average friendship.
We kid.
They kid.
But
Hold on.
one thing
You kid, did you see the vertical? Like, come on now.
Let's move on.
What they said? Okay.
So what I was gonna say, this is kind of in jest too, but something I want to explore. I remember on Facebook, and I don't remember who the two women were, but they were best friends. And somebody was like, they thought that they were a lesbian couple. And they was like, if people don't think your bestie your girlfriend, are y'all even besties for real? So my thing is, can you say that about a male-female bestie relationship? I feel like you can. I feel like that is something that is more taboo. Like people feel like, if both parties are heterosexual. And in this situation, one person was bisexual, one person was straight. And but I feel like there's a harsher judgment of a male-female relationship in those terms than it would be two women.
Well, I would not know any difference in this particular incident as all of my best friends have only been.
Really?
Correct. End of story. It's just like one of those things is that like, and there have been times I'm sure that people have confused us for more than whatever, but because of the way that I have viewed women as actual human beings, it's actually pretty easy for me to imagine that people who, a male and a female that are heterosexual could be in the same space and not actually attracted to each other other than being platonic. But I also recognize that that's rare because, again, I've caught the flack in the other direction where people are like, oh, are you dating this person? Like, no. Well, you should totally try. They look like they're into like that.
Yeah, because you're not into that person that way.
Right.
Yeah.
There's going back to the spectrum of that. I know that you were talking about how once you get to bestie level, then romantic involvement is completely off. I don't quite agree with that, but I think there's another ingredient that makes that space off the plate. Like that's not really interesting.
So when I made that spectrum, I will say that was with my own bias in mind. Not necessarily for like everybody else, because I mean, there are people who have said like we were best friends first and then we got married and, we had kids and, had a happy life together. Just for me personally, the cost is too great when the friendship is at that level.
Now, here's a question I have, because I've been in this situation too. Because of your friendship, how does it affect that person's intimate relationship with their partner? And the reason why I bring that up, like, again, like I said, I'm the type of guy I can sit down anywhere, listen, talk about anything, and then it goes back and forth. And I remember one time, way back in Ohio State, there was a girl, and the guy that liked her, he was, making his way part-time, working in the dormitory kitchen. And he was trying to talk to her. He wanted, beyond friendship. And me and the girl were talking. We were all talking about how, we sometimes have unwanted approaches. And it just turned out that guy started, treating me kind of malicious. It was out of nowhere. We'd be playing cards and I'd make a joke and I'd be like, shut up, you clowned it. And I'd be like, why you picked up a leap? And later on I found out it's because the girl that I was talking to in the lunchroom with the friendship, he was jealous of her and our friendship. Like he couldn't get that kind of conversation with her. And I didn't want to be mean or anything, but I was like, well, you're not me. And if you really understood, I'm not saying that to say that, oh, I can have any woman I want. My ability to talk to women, maybe you should develop that, not be trying to have what we have, work on what you got. If she's not into you, bro, there's plenty of girls out here that want a BMW. That was before BMW was a tire, And so there have been times when also there were other men who didn't like the fact that I was good friends with the woman they were dating. I didn't even know y'all two were dating, So that should tell you right there, ain't no interest in that area.
I have some feelings about that. So I have known women, because I'm gonna just say this about women because this is the situation that I've been in. I'm in no means saying that women are the only ones that do this, but there have been situations on both sides where I have known a woman who was upset about the friendship that their man had with somebody else. I've also seen the woman who is trying to maintain a friendship with the man whose woman is not cool with it. Now, my perspective is if I am your friend, I care about your happiness. So For instance, Roy is my best friend. I never want him out of my life. But if a situation came up where your wife was not cool with how cool we were, I would sacrifice that because that's your wife. That's who makes you happy. And I, as your friend, should want that for you. I don't see a reason to buck at your wife about our friendship. That makes no sense to me. And there's no sense in flitting around and, and not that we have this issue. Me and Mildred cool, Mary and Roy cool. We one big family, it's cool. But what I'm saying is, hypothetically, if that were the situation, I am going to give respect to your relationship first. Yes, it would hurt, but my thing is if I am messing up a relationship that you want to keep, okay, then I have to find out where my place would be if I had a place at all. And you rolling your eyes, so you tell me.
And this just gets into an entire other topic with that. So I'll just make it
So
quick.
would you pick a person that has that jealousy too? From the first?
Right. Like, so I'm just trying to keep it super brief because I know this isn't the main topic. But, Tiff, if you ended up with some guy who got jealous of me in your life, I would tell you that guy got a problem.
And I feel the same way. But here's the thing. What if I was like, but I love him. And I'm gonna stay with him, and you gotta act right so that he'll act right.
I got 5 words for it. Psychotherapy.
That's syllables.
But I was gonna say that falls within the text limit.
And don't get me wrong, I am not condoning a jealous partner who wants, you only belong to them and they can't, talk to nobody else. Not that.
Right.
It's just a matter of respecting the wishes of your friend. If your friend is saying, look, our friendship is causing a lot of problems at home.
So I had a friend way back when, and they were involved with someone who I thought was not a good person. She was mean to his friends, me, and others at the time. Actually, we need to recall that. I actually have one male best friend, way back when. Anyway, on with the subject here. And I was just like, this person's not a good person. It's going to be horrible. And I didn't support the relationship whatsoever. I tried to tell them that. I feel a little bit worried about it because I know that was their big moment when they got married and all that stuff. And I feel a little bit guilty about it. But later on, again, I'm not naming names. She tried to kill him. So.
Oh, my damn. Okay. Well.
There it is.
I saw it coming.
And I don't want to necessarily say it like that. It's just that this gets to the discussion about a totally different discussion about how to deal with friends who you see are in an abusive relationship. How do you possibly address that?
That's a good next topic.
But right now, how well should you know someone you date?
So for me, I not only have to know you, but I want to know people who know you so I can interview. I need to know people around you. So like, let's say in the instance with us. So I definitely had seen you. I had seen some things about your character. I had heard some things about you. I heard some things. Let's move on. But I had a sense of who you were outside of what you told me. So there have been situations where I've talked to a guy and they would say certain things, like, oh, I'm this, I'm that, blah, blah. And then I start interviewing people. They're like, oh, he lied. That is not what he do. That is not his position on this. Nah, he's still fucking her, whatever. And it's like, I got you. So what I need to know is not just you. I need to know folks around you. And this also kind of goes back to that safety issue. And as women, I feel like it's very important to do that because you don't really know who you're dealing with. So you got to do your homework. You really do. And so, yeah, I have to at least know that as far as how many people I have to talk to outside of you, maybe a couple, and not somebody that's like your bestie or somebody that's a relative, because they gonna laugh at your ass. So, just like, yeah, this one dude. And being in poetry was perfect because I could just be like, hey, him, he on the level. And I done avoided some really sketchy shit by doing that. So I gotta know a little bit. We ain't gotta be besties. We ain't gotta be on the bestie end of the spectrum. But definitely I need to know some stuff. I need to know like how many kids she got. Stuff like that. Definitely know if you done burned somebody. Anatomical information is, I feel, appropriate.
TIA, Takalani Intelligence Agency.
Boy.
I will run a background check on your ass too. I sure will.
You will totally utilize, like when I told you about Mildred, you instantly turned into your little FBI hat.
I sure did.
I didn't ask you to, but I knew she was going
And I love you, Mildred, but I had to
Investigate.
I had to investigate,
Propagate.
You know what? I think that that's part of dating is the purpose of to get to know you more. Okay, because I don't care what anybody says, you can't know everything.
Right.
But the dating is for you is a chance now for you to open up about yourself and for them to open up about you. Now I will say this. I had a friend that told me that one of the things she did was how observant she was. Like if she went out on a date and she met the man's mother, she observed the relationship between the man and his mother, and it kind of gave her a clue how he might treat her.
She's shaking her head like, no.
Well, that was her. That was her.
That's her. Because she did notice that one guy was like kind of like rude to his mother. And she's like, well, you rude to your mother. And she said after she caught it on another date, that the closer she got, he was starting to do that. And so that she had that pre-warning. It was like, this ain't gonna work. See what I'm saying? So now there are some mothers and daughters that don't have a good relationship. There's some fathers and mothers that, some sons and mothers that just don't have a good relationship for whatever. But it did for her give her an indication of what she might be dealing with if she was that observant. So guys, be aware.
I think, I'm sorry, I just want to say something really quickly. I do think that is kind of a go-to as far as like trying to find out how the guy treats his mother and all of that. But you need more than that because there's some guys that will worship their mothers, but they are misogynist to the hilt because it's
at what
different.
You said. Worship. So
Even
you get that.
even if it ain't worship, they just love their mama, whatever. What I'm saying is you have to view them at different relationships because if you just basing it on the mother, you might see something. No, I'm just talking. But if you just basing it on the mother and that's all the information you got, you may have a skewed picture. Like I recall somebody asking me like, hey, it was a guy that was a friend. And he said, don't you think that I would be somebody good to match up with somebody? And I said, well, I only know the friendship you. I don't know the I'm trying to get some you. So I can't speak to that.
So, but what did I say? You got to open up and learn. I didn't say that was the only
No, I'm not contradicting you. Okay. I'm just adding another perspective.
So how well do you need to know someone? You don't. Now, it also depends on what it is that you're looking for. So if you are just looking for somebody to do the horizontal tango, then you could just have that conversation with them that, I don't really care about who you are and your zip code. This is where we're going, for what we're going to do. We can do that on the regular, but that's fine. For me, how well do I need to know someone? I need to know a lot more. I've never been that type that would do that. But if I was giving advice to somebody, that's not really a standard. Again, goes back to the what are you in it for kind of thing. And make that clear to the people you're involved with. That is, the deception and all the rest of that stuff is just awful. So if you can't be honest with who you're involved with, whatever, different time.
So be careful what you ask for, but ask for what you want and know what you want ahead of time. But this has been a great session. And the creative Roy, Takalani, Brother Black, and myself, Barry, a.k.a. The Dark Knight. And we will see you next time on Barry's Poetic Session, the relationship show. Peace.